So Klaus Froelich, BMW's R&D boss, told Automotive News, "We see battery electric vehicles mainly on the West Coast and parts of the East Coast, while the rest of the US will continue with conventional gasoline engines. The best assumption is that electrified vehicles will account for 20 to 30% of worldwide sales by 2030, but with a very diverse global distribution."
I think it's kind of unfair to quote guys like this because you're probably quoting it out of context. He probably didn't really mean that. I mean, how could he possibly be so dumb? He's in charge of R&D at BMW. I'm sure he's smart enough to know that EVs are the future, Jesse. So maybe just tone it down on these little quotes, and let's just move on.
Oh, so you mean like quotes like, "In 2021, we will update the CLAR architecture with a new central floor that can house higher density batteries. This will permit our plug-in hybrids to travel 50, 62 to 75 miles in full electric mode, as well as allowing us to install a larger fuel tank than we have in our current plug-in hybrids."
Yeah, and he did say this. "Right now, a fuel cell powertrain costs about 10 times more than a BEV system. We plan to have those costs equalized by 2025 with the third generation of our scalable fuel cell system, which could result in volumes in the hundreds of thousands. We foresee fuel cells as a viable solution for light and heavy-duty trucks, which are facing very tough CO2 reduction targets and already use very efficient diesels, so the next step could only be electrification. But you cannot electrify a heavy truck with batteries because reducing the payload from 6 tons to 7 tons is absolute nonsense. With a single recharging station, you can refuel a fleet of 100 hydrogen-powered light trucks overnight. About 200 highway refueling stations could serve thousands of heavy trucks across Europe, which means that on the infrastructure side, this is feasible."
So in order to do this, you'd need a really big tank full of hydrogen gas, enough to fuel over, it'd have to be more than 100 trucks in a night. So
Yeah,
really, really big hydrogen tank?
I want to go back to hydrogen for a second. It gets talked about a lot by, certain companies like this is the answer to the future.
And there's a reason for that. And the reason for it is that you can take natural gas, which costs nothing, right? Basically nothing. When they frack for oil, they get this natural gas, and they don't know what to do with it. What you can do is you can take the hydrocarbons, strip off all that hydrogen, and you're left with a bunch of carbon dioxide. Who cares? Carbon dioxide. You can breathe it. Who cares?
You get cheap hydrogen.
And then you get cheap
but
hydrogen.
I want to talk about, let's imagine that you can magically just get the hydrogen for free, okay? And that it was wonderfully made.
You can do it sustainably.
Sure.
There is electrolysis, but it's not that efficient.
But I just want to go to once you have a tank full of hydrogen.
Now you have a tank full of hydrogen.
It's one of the most explosive substances that we know of. You put it in a pressurized tank, and you keep that in one place so that you can fuel all these trucks or cars. Who, first of all, is going to want to live near that tank? Because anything goes wrong, it's going to blow up. But going back to BMW, they're clueless. Froelich here says that China is only going to convert EVs in their big East Coast cities pretty soon. He says while Western China will rely on gas for the next 15 or 20 years. Europe, he says that he favors plug-in hybrids over EVs. And he said that plug-in hybrids, which will replace V8 vehicles, will account for about 25% of European sales. Another 25% will go to BEVs, and half or more will be shared by gas and diesel. Then in the U.S., he says most of the U.S. does not need BEVs. He sees an adoption mostly on the West Coast and parts of the East Coast. The rest of the U.S.?
Status quo.
But get this, BMW said that fuel cell versions of the X6 and the X7 are now in the works.
Goodbye, BMW. Yeah. It's really been nice knowing you. It's really disappointing to see a company just implode like this. I really don't see hydrogen fuel cells taking off. I'm putting my name on that. I could be completely embarrassed by this in the future. If hydrogen fuel cells have taken off and I look like a complete buffoon, I'm not going to be upset because it's not more efficient than a battery electric vehicle.
Right.
And until I see otherwise, that's my opinion. Thanks so much for watching this Now You Know clip.
Head over to Now You Know channel for full episodes of Tesla Time news and in depth.
And if you want to treat yourself and your family to something amazing, check this out.
Jesse and I have been enjoying Masterclass, where we've been learning all sorts of fun topics from the masters themselves. Chess from Garry Kasparov.
Scientific thinking with Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Space exploration from Chris Hadfield.
Design and architecture from Frank Gehry.
And so many more.
Click the link down below to support our channel and experience what it's like to learn from the masters at Masterclass.